Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Parallax Abstraction, and welcome to another episode of Retro Flashback, showcasing gaming's roots for a new generation. Today we're taking a look at game number 4 in the Capcom Arcade Cabinet collection, and, well, this is one of the major ones in this pack. We're taking a look at 1942, also known as one of the basic titles in shmup literacy, if you want to call it that. This is probably one of the better known shmups out there, another early Capcom title, and it still holds up pretty well. It's known for being relatively simplistic, but still very mechanically sound and very, very challenging to make real progress in. It's also known for having one of the most iconically memorable and at the same time pretty bloody awful soundtracks of arcade history. But let's jump right into this here. Concept of this game is not very difficult. You've got, when you're pressing the right button, you're a plane, you shoot other planes. And eventually you shoot bigger planes, and you shoot special planes that drop power-ups, and you kill bosses. It's a shmup, what can I say? And you're fighting for score. And it is also fairly punishing, as you saw there. This game kind of pulls no punches. You don't have a life bar. For the most part, you can't take more than one hit. You get hit by one stray bullet or enemy, and you are done. Pretty simple concept, but you know what? Shmups, I love shmups a great deal, and I like shmups that do have depth and heavy mechanics and systems to them. But there's sort of a beauty to the simplicity of 1942 as well. And it can often be nice to have something that sort of wears its mechanics and its design on its sleeve and just goes, yep, this is what it's about, and it's simple to learn. And the elegance in it comes from mastering the simplistic systems that you're presented with, rather than trying to just learn all the systems and then finding your best ways to exploit their design to greater effect. And that's kind of what's really cool about this game, and why, though I am a fan of a great many more advanced and deeper shmups, I still have a real fondness for 1942 in my heart. Alright. And it's funny, because this is a game that I definitely never got very far in. It can actually be fairly lengthy, but it takes no prisoners, and it demands, though it's simplistic to pick up, it demands skill, to be sure. But it's very, very good in that simplicity, and it's one of the things that I really enjoy. So here we are. We got through that stage. So it gives you your shooting down, which is actually just your hit percentage. And there we go. So obviously this is not the only game in this series. There was 1943, which is in this package, which definitely goes quite a bit heavier on the mechanics and designs. A lot of people, kind of myself included, would say that though that game is also very good in its own right, is a little bit more nefarious, because that game actually does have a life bar in it, and kind of demands that you really spend a lot more time mastering the systems and a lot of time managing your life bar, rather than just sort of focusing on your targets and getting a substantial hit percentage. And that's kind of okay, but it's definitely a bit more manic, and it's definitely not as streamlined as 1942 is, shall we say. Oh, I actually cracked the high score there, which is nice. So I got a pretty good shooting down there, and a pretty decent percentage as well. So that's alright. So the other thing I'm going to show you here is this game's equivalent of a special weapon, I guess you could say. So a lot of shmups, as we've discussed before, do tend to have sort of a bomb weapon, which is basically either a screen clear or an area clear weapon. So if you're kind of in a hairy situation and you sort of need a little bit of help. You have a limited number of these bomb weapons, and what they will do is they will either kill everything that's on screen, or in the case of a boss, do severe damage to it, or they will impact a very large damage ratio in a specific portion of the screen. So you'll have just an area that will be cleared out. Kind of like that, what just happened there, actually. That was basically a power-up that I picked up that did it, but that was not a weapon that I used. So in this game, what your special weapon is, and I screwed it up because I was too late on the button press there, but what your special weapon is just a sort of air dive. And what that will do, that doesn't actually kill anything, but it gives you the opportunity to potentially avoid incoming fire. And all it does is give you a very short breather of only about a second, maybe about a second and a half, where you are basically invulnerable because you're doing this air swoop and avoiding anything that's coming your way, be that other planes or bullets or anything of that nature. So it kind of serves a similar effect in that it is a little bit of a get-out-of-jail-free card, if you will, but it doesn't, you can't strategically use it to get more points because it's not actually killing anything. And it doesn't actually remove the difficult situation that you might be in when you use it. It just gives you a temporary reprieve from it to sort of compose yourself, or hopefully at least have the worst of it go by so that you can jump back in and sort of recover yourself from it. Because while you can't fire while you're looping, as you saw, you do still have freedom of movement. So you can sort of try to steer yourself out of the way of what might be getting in your way. And that's really the majority of what there is to 1942. It's not a... Nuts, I missed that power-up. It's really not a hard game to explain or to demonstrate, but it is definitely hard to master. This is a game that rewards a lot of repeated play and a lot of observation and a certain degree of level memorization to be sure. But I really enjoy the fact that it is really simplistic in nature and just gives you simple mechanics to master. I would say probably one of the worst elements of this, as memorable as it is this soundtrack, which I'm sure you've been hearing. It is incredibly simple, it is incredibly repetitive, and it's pretty annoying. It's all very, very high-pitched, shrill noises. Now here we go. This is a nice little power-up. So this is your option planes here, which clearly just gives you a much bigger area of effect. But as you can see, those option planes are just as vulnerable as you are. In most games of this kind, little companion items like that tend to be invulnerable, but not this one. This one makes them endure everything that you endure. So as you see here, everything's basically a variant on a plane that you're fighting. In some cases, there are larger planes that can definitely take a lot more damage and have sort of multiple forms, I guess, if you want to call them, like that one did there. And it is a pretty simple concept. But there's a remarkable amount of depth to this, and you can definitely get immersed in the systems that it gives you. I quite enjoy that part of it. Would be nice if you could get this with a different soundtrack, maybe, but it's not so bad. You kind of learn to just sort of work it into your thinking when you're playing. It's hard to say whether this or 1943 or the variant on it, 1943 Kai, or even actually 1944, which a lot of people don't realize there was a 1944 that did come out much later on than this, and it's actually pretty fun as well, but it tends to be lesser known because it was not an 80s thing. It was a much more technically advanced title, and it didn't see as much circulation as this one did, but this is still very enjoyable in what it does, and there is a very good reason why a lot of people consider this sort of an essential part of learning about the history of shmups. It is one of the earlier titles in the genre, but it's also just really, really good in that it's able to take a simple concept and make something very substantial out of it that doesn't feel shallow and doesn't feel sort of... doesn't feel... Oh, nice. Unlocked that. Actually, this is my first time playing this game in Capcom Arcade Cabinet, so I'm getting some nice unlocks out of it. But yeah, they're able to take something that's simple, but that at the same time doesn't feel that it's lacking depth or is something that was thrown together. Like, this doesn't feel like a game that was sort of thrown together and kicked on the market just to try to make a little bit of money. This is definitely something that, like a lot of early Capcom titles, really feels like it was designed by someone who had passion for the craft and really wanted to make something special. But they believed that just taking a few core systems and building on those was the way to go. And it's a rare thing indeed, especially in the modern era, but even back in this time period, to see something that sort of reveled in simplicity and yet came out as something more as a result. And this is very good for that. I highly, highly recommend 1942 if you're trying to play a lot of earlier shmups or sort of learn the roots of this genre, to be sure. And I kind of just recommend this game in general. It's really good, fun, manic action, and it will kick your ass, as you've been seeing here. I mean, even when I'm not commentating over this game, I'm not a lot much better at it than I'm showing here. It will definitely challenge you, but you never really get angry at this game. You always feel like when you died, it is because of something you did, and that you can improve at it, and that the game isn't being purposely mean about it. And to be honest with you, to say that about an arcade game is something impressive indeed, given that these games were designed with generally a singular purpose in mind, which was to milk as much money from you as they could. So that's definitely saying something. But yeah, that is 1942, published and developed by Capcom in 1984. We're taking a look at the Capcom Arcade Cabinet Edition. This is a really, really good shmup. If, for whatever reason, you want into Capcom Arcade Cabinet and don't want to buy the all-in-one pack, which is absolutely what you should do, I would definitely put this high up on your list of titles to consider if there's only a handful that you were looking for. My name has been Parallax Abstraction. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.